Hello, friends. Today I'm talking about Baimudan white tea, also known as white peony, and a story that it reminds me of. Just a little earlier, it was raining like crazy, a proper deluge, and I was trapped under a flimsy scaffolding on the side of the road, protected by sheets of corrugated metal. As I watched my footsteps disappear into the mud, I thought, this is a life experience. Coming from Canada, I didn't find the weather was so bad. Here I was in the mountains at who knows what elevation, even before the sun could be seen, and I was just in a sleeveless shirt and jogging pants. In Calgary, we didn't experience rain so much, and when it did rain, I didn't choose to go out adventuring around my city. So when it rained, I was often viewing it through a window. And perhaps it should be said, though I don't know why, that when I look back at rain and the feeling of being in it, it all goes back to childhood, when you had no choice, whether you're walking to school, out at recess or lunch break, walking home with friends. Rain was a time that you were with people that you liked, and you could do whatever you wanted. In a sense, rain was freedom. When the morning rain started to let up, I got out from my position underneath the scaffolding and I tiptoed along the edges of the road, attempting to save my shoes. I was unsuccessful. My red and white Pumas, which I just bought before the trip, were now decidedly gray and covered in mud. I took the only path and traveled down the mountain road, very likely the same road I came up the night before. It would have been something like 7 a.m. It was foggy, it was wet, dogs were barking in the distance. I vividly recall there was even a dead dog obscured by the tall grass of the ditch to the left, with its legs up. Adventure. Why was I out there? I really should have been sleeping. It was just so damn hot. I couldn't believe how hot it was. And people live in this? When I left the airport the night before at something like 9:30 p.m., as soon as I stepped out into the fresh air, I was blasted by this sticky sauna level of heat, and immediately I retreated back into the airport. I went to reach for my water bottle. It was missing from the pocket on the side of my backpack. So, not more than 10 minutes into my adventure, and I had already lost my water bottle. I remember thinking, I'm so good at this. Well, once I was mentally prepared for the heat, I aimlessly wandered out of the airport, zigzagged through the bus terminal, and into the unknown dark expanse of Asia. And after what seemed like an hour of walking, I found a gas station, and a taxi driver pulled in to fill up his tank. I showed him the address of where I was looking to go, and I asked him if he could take me there. Now, he seemed reluctant to do so, but perhaps feeling sorry for me, because, in hindsight, I was in the middle of nowhere, alone, at night, obviously not knowing anything about traveling or the proper procedures of things. He decided to help me. Now, maybe most people won't understand this reference, but music from Initial D should have been playing at maximum volume in this taxi. I have never been in a taxi like this before. Is this how people drive outside of Canada? This aggressively fast taxi blew through the pitch black mountain passes as I was dropped off in the darkness and told to walk down this narrow corridor of trees to where my hostel would be located. I guess I'm going to get killed today, on the first day of my trip, I somewhat jokingly thought. Luckily, there was a hostel at the end, and it was where I was trying to go, so I checked in and I went to sit outside. There was a guy from Israel playing guitar on a stone bench. We talked about where we're from. I don't remember much else. We vaguely agreed to meet up at a future date in the city, but that didn't happen. And then I went to sleep on the upper bunk in my room. But I was talking about traveling down a wet mountain road, and there was the dead dog in the grass, so back to that. As I walked through what appeared to be a sleeping little hamlet, the sights of swastikas caught my eye. I didn't see that symbol very often in Calgary. I knew that it had nothing to do with Nazis, but still played out the joke in my head, as boys do, that I've infiltrated some secret Nazi society in the mountains. Is it still called a swastika when it's not related? They're rotated 45 degrees? Anyway, although I wasn't out in the mountains so much anymore, and very much in an organized, civilized area, I didn't really have the feeling it was off limits. There was nobody around, and as I walked through this area, looking at the various architecture, closed doors, the shrine icons, etc., a dog appeared, and it started to growl at me. Wild dogs. That's another thing I'm not used to. Adventure. How do you handle a wild dog? What if it attacks? Is it actually wild? Am I not supposed to be here? I remember my mom told me when I was like 8 or something like that, that if a dog attacks you, you should pull its front legs apart and it'll kill the dog. Why am I planning to kill this dog? Where would I even go if it bit me? I was at least 2 hours away from the hostel at this point. Maybe I would put it in a headlock. Pah. I passively, slowly retreated in the direction that I came from, looking for a non-confrontational solution to my problem. It should have been noted that I was a pretty nimble little fellow, especially in those days. I saw my way out, luckily a path that was open to me thanks to my physical ability. I hopped over a stone wall, it's about 6 feet tall, and I ran back up the mountain pass. So, dog problem solved. My stomach was grumbling. The last thing I ate was around, would have been maybe spaghetti at the airport the day before. So mountain air has this special aroma anywhere in the world. And I haven't been to the mountains when it rains very often because, well, with planning, you tend to avoid that. Wet rocks, mud, moss, cold mountain air, decomposing leaves, dead wood, mulch, and then there's this warmth of someone cooking in the distance. This distinct yellow, warming aroma of ginger. Someone upwind was probably cooking breakfast, or it was just my imagination. Going back to the hostel, I arranged to visit this giant Buddha on the mountain, maybe the biggest Buddha in the world, something like that. And looking back on it all, when I drink Bai Mudan, there's a couple things that come to mind, but I would say one of them is my first day in Asia 16 years ago. I'm transported back there. Well, I hope you had fun listening to this.